Three, two, one. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Wednesday evening, hour earlier. Sorry, everybody. Got family in town on my side here. Both Dustin and I, it's our birthday week. So sorry, had to go a little bit earlier, but got some family in town. Going to go grab some dinner with them. So it gives us some more time to jump in and talk some Florida State football. They're deep into camp as Florida State next weekend. Isn't it just crazy to feel and have that vibe that Florida State has a game like this quickly? I mean, I know we're sort of used to it a little while back with the week 0 game a few years ago, but in this instant with college football starting earlier, it is just nuts to feel like we've got a game not too long away from right now. So we're going to talk our game by game predictions for you guys. So you're going to be getting our record predictions for the 2024 season right here. All of us on this show last season went undefeated in the record predictions.
Did Austin go undefeated?
Yeah. I went back and forth. I was between 11-1 and 12-0. And once we went game by game, it was like I just didn't see a loss. So we all went 12-0.
Yeah, no, so we did. So we'll see if that happens again this year. I don't think it's going to be that way. There's going to definitely be a difference of a battle here, I do believe, but we'll see who ends up coming up on top at the end of the season. But before we jump into that, we're also going to be talking about fall camp. Dustin was over there in Jacksonville. I know you guys last week got the kind of first reaction from practice there, but another practice happened, and Dustin is going to give us a rundown there of what he saw, and a young running back too that just continues to make strides in that running back room under Mike Norvell's offense. So a good handful of things to talk about this evening. As always, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. But with me this evening is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameday.com. And up there at the top is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer. Veazey, D-Lou, how we doing, baby?
It's great to be back. No longer in that musty hotel room in Jacksonville and back home in the 850. It is still hot, but like Logan was saying, I mean, football just around the corner. We got one more open practice tomorrow. I believe Florida State's also going to practice on Friday and Saturday. Those won't be open to the media. And then we are officially onto a game week.
We're about a week away from me doing 1,500-word game previews. I know Dustin's excited for that.
Ooh. Hey, it's not basketball, though, Dustin.
Yeah, it's football.
You should be excited.
Yeah, but just his writing style, I mean.
Oh, come on.
Damn, geez, that's messed up. That's messed up. That's messed up, man.
Yeah, that was uncalled for.
Man, that's tough. We got to, come on. As a team, this is a team. We're heading into the season as a team here, gentlemen, on this show. So we got to get our crap together here. But yeah, we also, too, forgot to mention Florida State had their second scrimmage as well. So got to hear from Mike Norvell afterward and also Alex Atkins on that too. So we'll give our comments on what we heard and what happened in that scrimmage. But number one coming out of it, though, health, and it seemed like Florida State got by with no, big injuries that will impact them going into this upcoming season. So some good stuff there. But I say we jump into it right off the bat so then we can get to our record predictions, because this is what everybody's going to want to hear, I believe. But fall camp, D-Lou, I don't know if you want to start. Maybe we definitely should probably just start off that second day from Jacksonville and talk about Samuel Singleton. I think we just jump right into it, man, because, Veazey, you've been excited about this kid. When I got to see him in person just a little bit, you can definitely – I always saw the speed there with him, but it seems like he's growing into a more powerful runner, and it seems like he had a really good day in Jacksonville on that second practice, D-Lou.
Yeah, it was certainly a change-up going from Wednesday to Thursday last week. Obviously Florida State practice using the Jacksonville Jaguars indoor facility over there at their stadium on Wednesday, just kind of due to the rain and the hurricane, the storm that had come through the area and kind of impacted that field over at UNF. But they were able to get out to that muddy patch of grass on Thursday morning, and what was an extremely humid day because you had all that rain from the past 36 hours. And by that point, it had cleared up, not really a cloud in the sky. So it's just getting more humid as that water continued to dry up. And I mean, just to kind of set the setting, it's basically a field in the middle of a forest / swampland. I mean, it's a little rough out there. And with the amount of rain they had gotten, you probably had about half a foot of standing water or so just around that field. So, I mean, it was certainly a test for the players and a test for the media as well. I was tested, but it was a fun.
Yeah,
It was
real rough.
it was a good practice. I think it was exactly what Florida State. That's what they wanted to get out of Jacksonville, to have one of these really tough days. And it was to the point where if a guy ran out of bounds and he happened to find some shade, you had Mike Norvell over there yelling at him to get back in the sun. I mean, they were doing whatever they could to challenge these players, and there were certainly some guys that took advantage of it. And like Logan was kind of opening the segment with, Samuel Singleton, he was absolutely excellent during that Thursday practice in Jacksonville. It kind of reminded me a little bit, going back 2 years ago, we got to see true freshman running back Rodney Hill down there, and he absolutely went crazy over 2 days at UNF. And that's kind of, it was shades of that kind of performance from Singleton. I mean, multiple touchdowns on Thursday where he was just able to break away from the defense. I mean, some of that was him, some of that was some really good blocking, but he was just all over the place. That speed, that acceleration, and like Logan said, that power. We didn't see it on some of these runs, but he was getting into the open field and he was gone. And I will say I was impressed with some of the defenders, because on one of those runs, you had defensive end Byron Turner Jr. Chasing Samuel Singleton 40 yards downfield, and he didn't end up catching the running back on the way to the end zone. But just to see that effort from one of your veteran defenders in a practice, I think it says a lot about this team and the culture.
That running back room is just extremely loaded. And when we talk about this upcoming season, it's going to be about this running back room. At least in my eyes, that's going to be the deciding factor on how well this team is going to perform on Saturdays, definitely offensively. I think we think very highly of this defense from everything that Dustin's been telling us, all the practice reports. But man, this running back room is going to have to carry the load this upcoming season. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the game by game predictions. But I like the competitiveness. I feel like Florida State just defensively has made this quarterback room, along with the running backs and this wide receiver room, better just because of the energy that they bring every day. And Coach Surtain, in his second season and with the success that he's been able to build on the recruiting trail, and now it gets onto the game field, I'm really excited about this room. And also to AZ and Fentrell, those guys seem to have been the highlight factors on that defense. And that's crazy to think. Well, also when you have Daryl Jackson and Joshua Farmer and the trenches right there.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive backs, what a job from them this preseason, from the top to the bottom of that group. I mean, I feel like they've all shown up and made their presence felt. And like you said, AZ, Fentrell have really taken their games to an elite level this preseason. And seems like they're going to be playing some really good football for Florida State in 2024. And you also had Mike Norvell say after the second scrimmage that he believes Shaheem Brown is playing the best football of his career right now. And that says a lot, because he's coming off a pretty good campaign himself. And, it seems like some of those other guys in the safety room that have just gotten to Florida State either this summer or back in the spring, Devontae Brown and Morion Cooper, they're continuing to settle in and get better and better. Conrad Hussey, that consistency is improving, but Florida State still wants to see him take it to a higher level. And I think maybe the most notable development for me was, this cornerback room outside of AZ and Fentrell. There's some real youth there, but we've seen some of the sophomores, the redshirt freshmen, specifically Edwin Joseph and Jabril Rawls, really begin to ascend this preseason. And, I like where this room is headed going into the season.
Anything just off of quarterbacks and what you've seen, and maybe jumping into some of the practices as of late? I saw, the offense had a really good day just the other day in practice, but what have you seen from both DJ and Brock Glenn? And we haven't really officially got an announcement from Mike Norvell on who the starting quarterback is going to be over there in Ireland. There hasn't been anything of that nature in depth chart out, but I think everybody's just wondering about how this room is looking going into this season after you just lost your star quarterback with DJ or Jordan Travis.
Lost him already? Jesus.
Damn, he's gone.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is still just the overall consistency. I mean, there are certainly those moments and, certain practices and certain periods where that arm talent is showing up and you're really seeing the quarterbacks and wide receivers connect at a high level. But then there are some other times where things just aren't on the same page and the quarterbacks are missing quote unquote layups, and deep balls overthrown and you're having passes hit the ground from the wide receivers. So I think it's still a work in progress, going into the season. And this is going to be something that they're going to have to establish chemistry as things kind of progress. So the way that I kind of see it is Florida State's passing game probably going to be better as the season moves on than, maybe in the season opener against Georgia Tech. But yeah, Tuesday, a really impressive day where you had Malik Benson making all types of plays. Deuce Spann put together, I would say, two of his best practices this preseason over Monday and Tuesday. Jaylen Brown was standing out. You had LaWayne McCoy making some plays as well. So, I mean, like I said, it's a work in progress, and it just comes down to that consistency because you can see the talent, but it's got to be clicking, more and more as this team gets into the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a comment in here from Philip on YouTube. This might be one of my child's guys over there. But Philip's over here saying they said Kevin Knowles is looking good at nickel.
Yeah.
How does Kevin Knowles look? Because, we were talking a lot about Earl Little Jr. coming over here from the former Alabama transfer. Either way, though, whoever starts, you feel good about the depth and that you have at the nickel position off of the experience that Kevin Knowles can bring you. And then Earl Little Jr., just the upside that he has. And it seemed like he had a strong start. You see Grady Vance over there now with USC transferring over here. But what does Kevin Knowles look like in camp? I think that's been a little bit more of a surprise to us.
He's definitely been coming along strong as of late. This last week, I would say he's been popping up more and more. Last Thursday in Jacksonville, I thought he was really competitive, forcing some incompletions and playing some really tight coverage on wide receivers. And it seemed like he started to find a groove a little bit, picked off a pass in Florida State's second scrimmage on Saturday, and then followed that up by picking off two passes on Monday. One, a really impressive play where he undercut a route on the sideline, picked it off, and could have took it back for 6, but it was kind of it was an end of game scenario. So, that was the game winning play for the defense, but he was still running back, and you had Mike Norvell yelling from the sideline, get down, just because that was, to win the game. But either way, a really great play there. And then later on in that same practice, a couple periods later, tight coverage on Ja'Kai Douglas, kind of out there towards the sideline. You had DJ throw into that window. Ja'Kai tried to make the catch. Ball kind of got tipped into the air a little bit. And they were both up there vertically, and Kevin Knowles ended up coming down with it. So, a nice play on the ball. Had a couple deflections as well on Monday. So, that's good to see from Kevin Knowles because he was obviously someone who struggled last year during that transition to safety. And, he's battled some injuries over the last year as well. And now to be back at that nickel spot, a position where he was pretty good for Florida State his first 2 years in Tallahassee. It seems like that move is going to be good for him. I'm not sure how things are necessarily going to work out exactly when that depth chart comes out on, I believe, Sunday. But if I had to, well, I don't want to project someone, but I will say as far as Earl Little Jr., I feel like he's been really solid from the beginning to end of this preseason, and you can definitely see some of those strides from the spring now to the preseason. And he's also someone who Pat Surtain talked very highly of on Tuesday.
And for Kevin Knowles, I think the biggest thing he was dealing with too was just health. We saw such a good stride from him when he first arrived in Tallahassee, and he got dinged up, and he was always wearing that green jersey and just didn't feel like he was ever 100%. And it seems like from what you're telling us, he's back to 100% and playing well. So I think that's just a great sign for any FSU fan just to add in some good depth there. And could it be even more if he just continues to make plays like this and excel in camp? Not much longer, though, until Florida State hits the field on Saturdays. And one player that I'm really excited to see in a real game scenario, got to see just a glimpse of it during the spring game, but Malik Benson. Seems like things are starting to churn, and things are warming up just at the perfect time. If you want a player in the wide receiver room to be clicking with DJ at this time, it's right now. And Malik Benson seems to be making some really, really nice plays for Florida State not too long away from kickoff.
Yeah, I feel like he's had some of his better practices as of late. We were talking here last week and maybe the week before as well that Malik Benson, he had a couple of passes go through his hands over some of those preseason practices there, kind of in that middle portion of camp. And I said last week, I didn't feel like it was too concerning at the time, and it felt like he was going to get back to that stride that he was in the spring. And we've certainly seen that over the last couple of practices. Monday, was definitely not one of the better days for the wide receivers during the one-on-one period against the defensive backs. And it got to the point where Mike Norvell challenged those guys. I mean, pretty with some fire towards the end of the drill. And, it seemed like Malik Benson took to that challenge because a little bit later you had Florida State in team drills. DJ threw a pass over the middle and contested coverage. AZ normally takes that challenge of guarding Malik Benson and team. And, he was playing some really good coverage there. Malik Benson just made a really tough catch over the middle of the field. And after that, followed that up with a couple of spurt plays as well. Then he came out on Tuesday and, I mean, just put together an even better day, created some space on AZ and one-on-ones, had a catch in the back of the end zone, had a wide open deep ball down the sideline from Brock Lynn where he broke away from the defense and ended up scoring there. So I feel like you're seeing exactly what you want to see from Malik Benson, kind of like you were saying, Logan. He's ramping up as we get closer and closer to the season, and that's a good sign for the Seminoles.
Mm-hmm. One thing for me on defense I want to bring up is Marvin Jones Jr. He's back fully back, full participation, so we get to unload and talk about him some more. But what have you seen from this guy as expected to be on the other side of Pat Payton whenever FSU faces Georgia Tech? I think this is going to be very critical of Florida State's pass rush this upcoming season because you know what you're getting out of Pat Payton, and I think we're going to see an even better season out of Pat Payton. But on the other side, too, I loved the tandem that Jared Verse and Pat Payton had last year. If Payton can feed off of what Marvin Jones Jr. brings on the other side, this defensive line can be really a wreck for opposing offenses this season.
I think you're seeing exactly what he gave you in the spring. And, Coach JP spoke after Wednesday's practice, and, he kind of noted about the time that Marvin Jones Jr. had missed early this preseason and said he feels like he hasn't missed a beat since he got back. And I think that's probably the best way to put it. Marvin Jones Jr., it hasn't taken him any time to get back into the fold. He's back out there dominating matchups, putting pressure on the quarterback daily, having some really good battles with Jeremiah Byers. I would say Marvin Jones Jr. has been winning those more and more as of late. Had a play on Tuesday where he just exploded out of his stance and got around Byers before he could really get his hands up, and was at DJ before the ball could even get out of his hands. I mean, they even let the play go on for a second just to see if DJ could throw it downfield. That was how quick he got to the quarterback. And later on, I mean, gave Byers a really nice pop in those 3-on-2 drills where you've got the defensive line and offensive line going up against one another. So the physicality is there, I think. And I was saying it in the spring, I mean, the explosiveness out of the stance at snap, that is going to be a problem for some opposing offensive linemen. I would say a guy like Jeremiah Byers and, to an extent, Darius Washington, some of those other offensive tackles, they've gotten a chance to see it in practice. But some of these guys that are going to see it for the first time, they're going to be surprised. I mean, he flies off that edge, and he also plays with plenty of strength as well. So, in my opinion, it feels like he could be FSU's breakout star of the season. We'll see how it goes. But from what he's done in practice in the spring and then come back and done it this fall as well, I really like the direction that kid is trending in.
I saw that at the only practice I was at. I was like, whoo, that boy's got some get-off speed. I mean, for the size that he has with him, and you can just tell, too, he's done a really good job in the weight room with Coach Storms. He has that size, that power, and you like that just when you lose a guy like Jared Verse who's dominating little tackles in training camp right now. And then, you're able to replace him with Marvin Jones Jr., which has such a high upside. And you feel like the ceiling is very high for this young man. But to see him dominating, man, for Jeremiah Byers, it's good. He needs that work. It's going to be good stuff. Iron sharpens iron type of deal. But, yeah, good luck on Saturdays when you have this guy flying off the edge whenever he's fully healthy as well, too. One last thing for fall camp, D-Lou, I wanted to ask you is about this wide receiver room. I already talked about Malik Benson because we're trying to, seeing what they're going to be rolling out there for the starting unit in the wide receiver room, and been hearing a lot about Jaylen Brown and reading up on your practice reports as well. And this is the former LSU transfer wide receiver. Florida State did a really good job of recruiting him, ends up going ahead and picking LSU, but now is back and here in Tallahassee. Seems like he's, making some plays and continues to kind of build some consistency where we're going to see him quite a bit, if not a lot, in 2024. What have you been seeing from this guy who, watching the video of Cam Davis walk in next to him is just so mean to do? That was messed up. That's messed up. Now it's going like viral everywhere. But that's messed up. That's messed up.
What was crazy to me is someone in the comments was like, which one's Cam Davis?
Oh, they're not, obviously have not done any kind of homework of what's happening on this team. But Jaylen Brown, though, I mean, working himself in to get into this rotation, I feel like. What have you seen from him?
Definitely one of the smaller wide receivers. I mean, you can see from that video of Cam Davis, if you have watched it, more of a smaller frame at that wide receiver position. I feel like that's something, he's going to have to continue to add weight throughout his college career. But as far as right now, I mean, there's not much he can do before things kick off on August 24th in Florida State. I mean, they're going to need him in action, with what we've seen from the wide receivers this preseason. And yeah, like you were saying, Logan, Jaylen Brown feels like he's right in the conversation for that wide receiver 2 spot at the moment behind Malik Benson. Ron Dugan's even alluded to as much last Thursday while speaking after the final practice in Jacksonville. It feels like Jaylen Brown is just getting more consistent as the preseason has went on. It seems like he's getting a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And, we've seen him connect with throws from DJ and Brock over the last couple of days, looking pretty good. A lot of that, I would say, in the middle of the field, but there have been plenty of times as well where he's able to utilize that speed off the line of scrimmage, make a little move on a DB and catch something, deep down the field as well. Certainly a guy who could be a deep threat this season for the Seminoles. I would say that's the biggest part of his game, that speed, the athleticism, the shiftiness. He's got pretty good hands as well. And, he's someone who was just a redshirt freshman. So a lot of potential for this guy coming in after 1 year at LSU. And I think Florida State, they're going to harness what he can do this season, but this is certainly a guy where his best football is going to be ahead of him.
I'm thinking about like Pokey. What's the size difference there? Because I didn't really get to see much of Jaylen Brown, but I'm just trying to think about when Florida State's going vertical here and what they were able to do with J-Trav to Ontario. Wilson, that's where I'm kind of maybe, if I'm going to compare someone to somebody, that's where I kind of am leaning toward right there with how, what Jaylen Brown. But I feel like, too, he's really great in intermediate routes, like you're saying, too.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown listed at 6'1". And I would say the thing about Ontario Wilson is, obviously a smaller wide receiver, but he was one of those guys that when the ball's in the air, he's going up and making a play on it and going to make that his ball. I want to see that more from Jaylen Brown, just more of that aggressiveness. But as far as being and that's something that Mike Norvell and Ron Dugans have talked about, but he's continuing to get better and better. He's taken to some of those challenges from the coaching staff, and I feel like we've certainly seen him make strides since he got here in the spring.
Anything else that you want to mention on here before we move on to maybe some question marks that we have learned before going into this game in Ireland, and also our record predictions?
Yeah, I would like to just bring up Amari Williams real quick because he's just continued to make more and more plays since we talked about him just last week. Mike Norvell noted that he had an explosive touchdown in the scrimmage on a throw from Brock Glenn, and then he came back yesterday, had a touchdown in one-on-ones, was able to get past a physical jam from Ashlyn Barker and get open there in the corner. And, a big thing for this kid, 17 years old, just got to Florida State. We're talking about how fluid and natural of a receiver that he could be in this tight end room. But what's going to get him on the field of that position is his ability to block. And I've been impressed with those strides. I talked about it last week, but you had another one of those plays, the drill where the defensive line and linebackers are matched up against the offensive line and tight ends. I mean, those guys are all just kind of going at it for a little bit of space. But Mari Williams, took one of those guys to the other side of the field, and you have Mike Norvell and Preston Brady running in there really fired up. I really like what this kid has put on display this preseason. He's probably my most surprising player this fall so far, and I'd be
He
surprised.
just arrived, which is crazy.
I'd be surprised, just 17 years old, but I think he's going to be on the field for Florida State in 2024.
Wow. That is wild. I mean, just how quickly he's been able to get down. It seems like, first off, the biggest thing to me is mental game and getting the playbook down and everything, and Mike Norvell's offense, but then too, just to be able to bring that physicality and, make plays. Because I feel like for most young guys, they can come in and they can make these flashy plays and such, but it's all about getting down the routes. And, he's still learning too. Not everything's just, he's, a starting guy, but still the fact that he could see some playing time so early on. And you got another guy that was a former 5-star with Landon Thomas there, who's also another youngster as well. So at least overall, you feel really good about that tight end room and the future with Amari Williams making some really strong strides. I wanted to bring this up, and it was in our tweet earlier, and I've been thinking about this all throughout the week, honestly. And my biggest question marks before kickoff in Ireland against Georgia Tech after we've gone through a fall camp, because we've done a segment before talking about biggest question marks before going into the 2024 season, but now we've had a fall camp. We've been able to go in, see what's working, what's not working, some things that we want to see answers on, and it's going to take an actual game to see that. What are y'all's biggest question marks? And I'll start off on mine. And I kind of was already talking about it before, and I'll start off with the running back room. And it's the running back room and the combination of the offensive line. And all of us on here weren't too fond of the play there that we saw on the offensive line last year. A lot of health stuff went into it, blah, blah, blah. But still, nonetheless, we thought that running back and OL duo there combination was going to have a lot more success. And, Trey Benson still having to fend off a lot of defenders coming in the backfield. It just seemed like there wasn't a lot of good chemistry there. And definitely there in your guard position just seemed like things were off. That's where one of my biggest question marks is, because I think this is just overall the team's success. If Florida State can't get this run game going, because there's talent back there, but if there's not that chemistry built on the offensive line pretty early on, Florida State's going to have to go to DJ and throwing the ball. And that's something that hasn't been the strongest presence in fall camp thus far. And there's not much more fall camp. There isn't really any left right now. Now you're into a full-on game prep week for Georgia Tech and the Yellow Jackets. So this run game, we've got to see that thing clicking. And I understand it's not going to maybe get a 1 or 2 series, but that offensive line and running back combo has got to be going. And that's, one of my bigger question marks going into the whole season, but definitely week 0, I should say.
It's been going in camp. I would say that. But coming out of the preseason, if I'm looking at a question mark for Florida State, I think it would really be this passing game, in my opinion. It hasn't been as crisp as I would have liked. And coming out of the spring, we talked about the wide receivers, the inconsistency there, the issue with drops at times, and I don't think that they've completely worked themselves past that this preseason. There are still a lot of question marks to answer. I don't think any starting role on the wide receiver in the wide receiver room is locked up at this moment outside of Malik Benson's role. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how Florida State utilizes that mix of the veterans that they have, and then also, some of those younger guys as well. LaWayne McCoy, Elijah Moore. We talked about Jaylen Brown, Hakeem Williams. So, how are all these guys going to end up meshing together? And I just don't know that we got a clear answer on that this preseason. And then on the flip side, with the quarterbacks, I just feel like, some of those short to intermediate throws, you're just not seeing as many connections as you would want this fall. And whether that's a miss by the quarterback or a drop by the wide receivers, and you've had some overthrown deep balls as well. So we'll kind of see what happens. I certainly think, looking back to this time a year ago, I thought Jordan Travis was playing really good football at this point of the preseason, and you felt really confident about having Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson and, obviously Jaheim Bell and some of those other guys. And I just don't know that you have as sure of an answer right now going into 2024.
And if you're going to talk about the passing game, you have to include the tight ends. You just talked about Amari Williams, but he's a 17-year-old true freshman. And as we've talked about all preseason, it's not a very inspiring group with Kyle Morlock, Brian Courtney, Landon Thomas. They just haven't shown too much. I was going to say the passing game as well, but I'll lean something on defense just so we talk about it. The linebacker room, I'm still curious to see how that works out outside of DJ Lundy. they've got a tough matchup in week 0 against Georgia Tech. Very dynamic running back there with Jamal Haynes, 1,200 yards from scrimmage last year. They got to become ready to play, and to see how the unit's going to play out is going to be pretty interesting to see.
I feel better now after fall camp hearing about Kyle Morlock make those strides. Though overall, the tight end room still is it's a question mark. But now I do like what I've heard from Kyle. I like the plays that he's been making. Seemed like he's made some strides that we needed to see, but that's just one tight end out of that group that you got to figure out who's going to be blocking there too. Because I don't have Kyle as being my blocking tight end. You lost Biscuit in there, who was a big time factor in that room for that purpose. So. That's the thing about the tight end room, because you kind of know what you have at running back, but then it's your passing game. There's so many question marks in a lot of different ways, and it's all start up at the top with your quarterback play. And that's been my biggest conversation is the difference from going from Jordan Travis to DJ. It is going to be a difference, and people, they're going to notice it week 0, but there is going to be a difference there. And I'm interested to see too. Maybe one of my biggest question marks is how this offense is going to really look on Saturdays. You get to see it in practice and such, Dustin. You can't give away everything. We don't want you to give away everything here on the show. We only do 5,000 views, so nothing crazy major. But still, I want to see how this offense is ran under a different type of whole different type of quarterback, and I'm interested to see how he's going to utilize some of these skill players, and it's going to be really, really interesting to me. But I like the linebacker conversation too, because there's some answers that need to be made too in that room as well. But I feel good about this offensive line. I'd like to hear better things, and not saying he's at an awful camp, but I'd like to see more out of Jeremiah Byers. And I think it's good that he's going against Marvin Jones Jr. and Pat Payne and etc. And he's going against some really good guys there, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of some development there from him, if I'm going to be honest with you guys.
I was going to say, going against Marvin and Pat day in and day out is tough. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be one of those, just until we see him against someone else that isn't these two freak athletes, until we can start really seeing what that true value is for him.
And I think so. And I would do that, but I was just going to say that that happened last year, though, with Jeremiah. And that
going against Jared Verse.
But on Saturdays when you're going against,
yeah, true, yeah,
exactly. I don't want to say it, but that just practice and it goes to Saturdays. Practice, it goes to Saturdays. There's no growth. But what do you say, D-Lou?
You just got to hope there is some growth. But I think Austin said it last week or 2 weeks ago. Going against Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. Those are two of the better guys that Jeremiah Byers is going to face this entire 2024 season. So, just getting that experience against elite talent and, getting your ass kicked a couple of times, I think that puts a fire under you. And, we've certainly seen that from Jeremiah Byers. He's not someone who, after one of these reps, he's smiling and laughing. Like, we've seen some frustration from him at times. And, he's certainly a guy that wants to be better and trying to be better for Florida State, and he's going to be a big piece at right tackle.
100%. Any other question marks that it's on the top of y'all's heads for you guys? It's a starting wide receiver unit, and just seeing how that's going to.
I was say maybe not as much of a question mark, but a thought-provoking question. Last year, Florida State had 3 receivers with more than 500 yards, with Keon, Johnny, and Jaheim Bell. How many get there this year? Because I think it's just one. I think it's just Benson.
Might be a running back that takes some yards. I'll
say 2.
Just go.
And for reference, the year before in 2022, there was only one as well. It's Johnny Wilson, close to 900, and then Pokey fell just short at like 490.
Wow. Yeah.
I'll say 2 players, but I don't know that it's going to be 2 wide receivers.
Like there's a. I don't know. I like what you have with the pass catching game with your running back room. So I think that's going to add in a lot of what Florida State's going to be doing on a game to game kind of feel when they're going and seeing what they're reading on some of these defenses. But I like what you got there in that running back room and pass catching. And I think it's going to eat up a lot of yards. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I'll tell you, how have penalties looked? Has Norvell been putting the refs out there like he usually does sometimes, D-Lou?
Yeah.
Do you know? Penalties look.
They've been out there. I would say that I would say they're letting the DBs play a little physical out there, but
Mm.
Fine with
and
me.
there have been some pre-snap penalties that have popped up at times as far as false starts and things of that nature. Wouldn't say overly so, but it's definitely something that we've seen mess up a few possessions here and there.
Mhm. And two, just a note, I want to do this before we go to game predictions. We heard, like I was saying earlier, from Mike and Atkins about the second scrimmage. Seemed like everybody came out of that pretty healthy. A lot of guys, though, and it's been this way since the first scrimmage, a lot of guys being held out, just being cautious with them and such, but got to see a lot of the second team and third team guys jump in and get some opportunities. But I don't know if you had any kind of takeaways for the most part on your end, Dustin, from that. Had DJ out there, got to see Brock. It seems like Luke, though, continues to make some growing strides, which you love to hear. But for the most part, Ja'Kai Douglas was able to find the end zone too. It seemed like he had a really good scrimmage as well. Uh, you know, it's crazy we haven't talked so much about him a ton. I feel like this fall camp, but we should expect to see him this upcoming season quite a bit. Um, just kind of like one of those things, didn't get a whole ton from Norvell on it. Not going to
Definitely
get a
not.
ton. It's just like how it's going to be always. Kind of got to go around for scoop and nuggets on it. But, on here, we can't even discuss it as well. So it's just like, all right, we just keep it to ourselves. So it's not really fun. But most part, the biggest thing to me is just staying healthy. That's what I care about the most. And, most of these guys were held out anyways. They're starters. So keeping it safe and cautious as it should be.
Yeah, as you pretty much said, it seemed like one of those scrimmages where Florida State was more focused on getting some of the younger guys work and some of those guys that are involved in position battles, whether that be for a starting job or a job in the two deep. Seemed like it was more focused on things like that. So you had some guys that were limited on snap counts or maybe didn't even play at all. So that certainly made it a little bit different than what we saw in that first scrimmage. But it seemed like the offense was definitely more productive than a week ago. Logan noted on a couple of those touchdowns. And I mean, the big thing to me is Ja'Kai Douglas because, as you said, Logan, we haven't really talked about him a ton this preseason. And frankly, I would just say that's because I don't think his performance has been up to his standard. There have probably been, I would say, too many passes that he's dropped this preseason and plays that the veteran hasn't made that we normally see him make. And, so that's good to see him kind of rebound a little bit there. And I think that's going to be really big for Florida State because obviously you had Destin Hill go down. Ja'Kai is going to be likely your starter in that slot position. And he's played a lot of good football at Florida State, but I would just say these last couple of weeks, hasn't been in his full stride and hoping he can see a little bit of a resurgence here as we get to the season.
Mike Norvell also talked about Daniel Lyons, and I meant to bring this up. My biggest question marks: who's going to step in and actually be a good depth piece, someone that can actually stay out there for even a full series, 2 series, whatever, in a game, just in case something were to go wrong for Joshua Farmer and Daryl Jackson. You are relying heavily on those two guys to stay healthy this upcoming season. But Mike Norvell gave a lot of praise to Daniel Lyons, said that he's had a great camp. He said, I really like that interior group with how they're growing up. That room, and we've heard a ton from Adam Fuller and Norvell about the linebacker room too. They've really pointed out that they've liked how well that those two groups have grown and shown them, because I think that was also one of their biggest question marks going into this fall camp. As we were previewing this fall camp, were those two rooms and who's going to step up in those places after losing what you had in linebacker room with Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune, and then what you had there previously with Braden Fisk and Fabo. And there, there's a lot of things that need to be answered. And I think the staff feels pretty strongly about that. And we'll see how that works out. But also, too, you were talking about Amari Williams. He scored a touchdown in that second scrimmage, caught a touchdown pass from Brock Glenn. He also mentioned tight end Kyle Morlock. I asked him some updates there because Dustin had been talking very highly about him here on Hear the Spears. So I had to ask Coach his thoughts on him, and he said that he has a chance to be an all-conference tight end. So there's a lot of, praise being given to TE1 going into this season. Alex Atkins, too, mentioned Elijah Moore, another true freshmen that just arrived on campus, and Jalen Brown, 2 players in that wide receiver room that have really impressed him to this fall camp. But those were kind of my main takeaways from what we heard from Mike Norvell and Atkins after the second scrimmage. Gentlemen, you ready to do this thing? Jump in, game by game. It's time. Nobody's going. I don't think anybody's going undefeated this season. I feel like I might, a little biased. I think it might happen. But, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, it's time to get going. I think
it's a tough one.
It is tough. Sure. Are you nervous?
I don't even know that I've fully finalized anything. Just kind of one of those things.
I usually go with the gut. Gut. I like the gut, and I don't ever write. Like, I'd write down some little stats and stuff here and there, but I don't. It's just all about gut at the end of the day.
I feel like this is definitely more of a rough draft before we do it in article form sometime next week.
Oh, you're already making excuses.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh. Oh, okay.
I'm just saying this isn't set in stone yet for any of us, I don't think.
Kind of is.
Especially as we go game by game throughout the season. Things will change.
Look at this. You're already losing viewers. No, this matters the most out of everything. Easy. This matters. This is the big one. This is the respect of Hear the Spear. That's the article. That's the article, people. Yeah. So these are our people here on Hear the Spear. So everybody too, while we're going game by game, put it in the chat. We're going to start from the very top, go to the bottom, put in what you think the result will be from these games. But I say we go ahead and get started, gentlemen. Florida State. You ready? Go ahead, D'Lo. What you got?
I was just going to say, and whenever someone picks Florida State to lose a game, make sure you flame them and insult them personally.
Yeah. Tweet them, please. Let them know how awful of a garbage human they are.
It happened last year whenever we made those. I remember we made the Orange Bowl predictions.
Oh, my God.
People were so pissed.
And we were keeping it somewhat respectable. I think we kept it within like 3 scores. It was a 16-point game.
Yeah.
Tough one.
Yeah, we were very nice about that. And too nice. We could have gone to the realistic part of it, which it actually was. But anyways, it's a new year. We're done with that year. It's on to 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into week 0. Florida State flies over the pond over to Dublin, Ireland to face off the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Got a quarterback, got a running back. You were just talking about him earlier, VZ. You think very highly of him as well. This offense has a chance to be special. We got to, I got to see a lot of Georgia Tech after that Miami game last year. Absolutely hilarious. I mean, I love seeing now the little throwback videos that are popping up on Twitter. But to me, this game, it's all about those question marks we were talking about there. We're going to get answered pretty quickly, I think, in this. Definitely offensively for Florida State. Some question marks defensively for Georgia Tech. But I like Florida State's defensive side of the ball here. What are y'all's thoughts about this week 0, gentlemen?
Did you even pick a winner?
No, I'm waiting to see what y'all say because, like I said, I'm going by gut here, and who knows? I might just go off the chat here. No, I feel confident here in Florida State, so I'm going with a W.
Yeah, a lot of question marks. Florida State obviously breaking in. Double-digit new starters on both sides of the ball. New quarterback, a lot of new running backs, new wide receivers, new tight ends, new piece on the offensive line, new piece on the defensive line, new guys and young guys in the linebacker room. Same thing there in the secondary. I mean, there's a lot of differences for Florida State when you're looking at this season opener compared to what we just had a year ago with FSU in Orlando facing LSU. A lot of new pieces. So I'm going to go Florida State in this one, but I think it's going to end up being closer than probably a lot of people expect just because, those new pieces, it may take a little bit of time for everything to kind of assimilate how the Seminoles want.
I agree. I think it's going to be a little closer than people want. Georgia Tech's returning a lot of their major pieces on offense. Return Haynes King at quarterback, Jamal Haynes at running back. Their 2 leading receivers from last year are back. They're experienced and they know what they want to do offensively. Florida State hasn't quite figured that out just yet with all these new moving pieces. But on the flip side, I feel really good about Florida State's defense. And like Logan mentioned, Georgia Tech's defense wasn't very good last year, and they didn't do a lot to address it in the offseason. I think it's going to be Florida State, but it may be a 3-point game, and it wouldn't surprise me.
And then I was going to say, I think, the big part of this, I think for Florida State's success in this game is going to be Alex Mastromano and Ryan Fitzgerald. I think they are going to play the vital part in Florida State getting away and getting a win against Georgia Tech. Definitely for thinking it's going to be this close, but I really think special teams is going to play a huge part. Definitely if Florida State can put DJ in the offense and put them in a good position on the field and get down the field and score, that's going to be huge. So I'm putting a lot of this on the special teams going into next weekend. That's my biggest thing going into this game, I think, for me. And I've never done that on Here the Spear before, where I'm aligned so heavily on the special team. Let me just go and tell you right now, but I think very highly of Ryan, and I like what Ryan did last year, and then also to Alex doing his thing. I need those two guys to step up against Georgia Tech because it is going to be close.
Need that new long snapper to be throwing some crisp balls.
That's right. Exactly. All right, here we go. Let's go into week 1. Florida State is going to kick off their home season schedule against Boston College. I'm super stoked for this one. I'm going to be up there. D-Lo, get me on the credentials. I'm up there, baby. We're going to have a good time. Monday night kickoff, September 2nd, 7:30. Wait, you're going to get me up there? Or
we'll see. I don't know.
Come on, man. I want to go up there. I want to have a good time. But yeah, definitely looking for this one. Doak should be really interesting. Got the renovations going on. Interested to see how that looks with the crowd.
Oh, you were going to say rocking for a second.
No. It might be rocking. They better make sure those bleachers are secured and everything. But still, there's a lot of cool storylines here with Shashawn Ward, former Here the Spear alum on here, is going to be facing his former team as well. You already know what they have there at quarterback. I think this is going to be a fun game in Doak. And I like that this is at home for Florida State because we just know traveling to Boston College, always just either up, down, close games. And Boston College always brings that physicality. But just y'all's first thoughts here on this game and how y'all are feeling going into this one.
I think it could be a really fun one. We all saw what Thomas Castellanos was able to do whenever Florida State went up to BC in 2022. And, really gave FSU one of their bigger scares of the season. They were very close to having that one slip out of their fingers and, potentially getting a loss in September, able to overcome it in the end. And then now you kind of add Trayshawn Ward into that mix. And I know Austin likes his guy, Robichaud, if I'm saying it correctly.
Good running back.
Nice tandem of running backs there. And BC going to be a little bit different this year, bringing in Bill O'Brien, first-year head coach. I do have Florida State taking this one. I think they're going to be able to handle Castellanos a little bit better after what they dealt with last year. And, I feel like they've got the athletes along the defensive line also in that linebacking core as well to kind of hold up there.
Yeah, it's another emphasis on the linebackers, how they're going to do against this, what we're expecting to be a heavy run offense with Castellanos, Robichaud, Treshawn Ward. And they're also returning their leading receiver from last year, Lewis Bond. Florida State should win this, but with it coming off the Ireland trip, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets off to a sleepy start.
Yep. And got to mention Bill O'Brien, now the head coach over there for the Eagles as well. So
Dustin did just say that.
Well, I'm over here researching things.
Here he goes.
Getting ready for
research before the podcast.
No, I'm doing the deep what people want to hear, the Easter eggs and nuggets. Like those kind of things just come out.
So you had to research to figure out Bill O'Brien was the head coach?
I didn't have to research that. That, but I was going into some deeper things, seeing, it's been quiet. I didn't hear a whole ton about Bill O'Brien and the Eagles, but they should have a really good season this upcoming year. Where were they ranked in the ACC voting? Were they?
They were like 10th or 11th. They weren't very high. I put them higher than they ended up being.
Thought they were a little low.
I
think they should have been higher. I feel like they should be higher.
I put them 9th, and they were significantly lower than that, I think. I think they're like 12th or 13th, which is too low.
Just having Castellanos is going to win them a couple games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that alone, just the way that he plays, yeah.
And Bill O'Brien's a good college coach. Granted, it's been a while since we've seen that, but he was a good college coach the last time we saw him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That team was so undisciplined last year. Remember that game? There's just so many flags and penalties. That's what saved Florida State for the most part. Shoot. They would have stayed disciplined.
Set the school record, I believe.
Yeah, that was insane. That was absolutely insane what we saw. I just
Remember
remember tweeting.
they lost the game on a penalty. I forget exactly.
I think that's which would make sense. That makes sense.
This is the fourth down. I think they went off sides, and that allowed Florida State to run out the clock.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 23, 24 penalties, something crazy.
Yeah. But then let's move on here, gentlemen. Well, I got Florida State winning that game too. I think it's going to be the Marvin Jones Jr. game on Castellanos. I think we kind of see him have a big game there for Florida State inside Doak, his first game in Doak Campbell Stadium. So looking forward to that. Then Florida State is going to have its bye week since they had a game in week 0. So that's why it's so early in the season. Then Florida State is going to play Mike Norvell's old school Memphis, which is another awesome kind of cool storyline here for sure. But they are going to kick off at noon on September 14th on ESPN. I got Florida State winning this one here, just in my books, but interested to get y'all's takes here.
It's going to be an interesting game. I've certainly got this one circled on the calendar, and been a lot of buzz on Memphis this offseason. You know, one of the, if not the top group of 5 team that has a chance to make this 12-team college football playoff. And, you know, if they were able to upset and beat Florida State, that would give them a very good argument in the end. But, you know, Memphis, they've had Ryan Silverfield there. Wow, I don't know what happened there. They've had him there since Mike Norvell got to Tallahassee, and you know he's been doing a pretty good job keeping that program on the right track. Not to the level necessarily that Norvell had it at there, you know, those final couple of years with the Tigers, but I mean, still a very respectable group of 5 program, and coming off a really good season. Have a veteran quarterback back, 2 wide receivers that had over 900 yards last year. I mean, this is an explosive offense. Not a very good defense, and I think that's probably going to be what helps Florida State get the win here in the end. But I could see this one being higher scoring than people expect.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. Seth Hennigan returning at quarterback, 3,800 yards last year, 32 touchdowns, had another few touchdowns on the ground. Rock Taylor, 1,000 yards through the air last year as a receiver, and Demir Blankency, I hope I'm pronouncing that right there at 900. Offense is going to be pretty dangerous for Memphis. That's kind of been their trend the last few years. But as you mentioned, their defense is not very good. If this is like a 41-28 game, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, just watching some games last year, didn't really like what I saw on the defensive side of the ball for them. So I got Florida State winning that one, and I think it's actually going to be. I think Mike Norvell is going to run it up. No, he wouldn't do that. That would be messed up if he did that.
No, he absolutely
is. If he gets a chance, he will absolutely.
That's messed up, man.
Did you see what he did to Southern Miss last season? And that was like his former assistant.
Well, that's so long ago.
He dropped 66 on him.
I don't mind it at all.
And you best believe if they play Southern Miss again this year, they drop 75.
Hey, yeah. All right, let's move on here to new ACC foe, gentlemen. Cal. Never thought I'd actually be saying this. Florida State's facing Cal.
It sounds ridiculous.
Stadium. Like it feels like just like what you've been playing the video game on EA Sports. Like you just set up just some random kind of game with somebody, and it's Cal that is selected. But don't have a kickoff time yet, of course, for this as we're in the heat of the season. But Florida State win. I really haven't done a whole ton of homework here on Cal, so I just got Florida State winning this game. I had it whenever the schedule came out, and I would have it probably 5 years from now. So there it is. Unless Marshawn Lynch is in there, unless it's Marshawn Lynch
or Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I will say, I do think Cal. They might have the best running back that Florida State is going to end up facing in 2024.
It's tough. It's close.
Jaden Ott, 1,300 plus yards last year. What was it? 12 touchdowns on the ground. So, I mean, this guy's proven he is moving from the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
Still call that Pac-12 to the ACC. I mean, we'll see if the change in competition, see how that goes for him. But in the end, I mean, I do have Florida State winning this game, advancing to 4-0. I believe they should have the talent to be able to take down Cal. And, I'm personally wondering, how much is that distance of travel for the Golden Bears? I mean, how's that going to affect them having to? I'm not sure who they play the week before FSU, but then to have to go to Tallahassee from California, I got to believe that's not going to be an easy thing to do on a regular game week.
Just for your information, they play at home against San Diego State the week before. But yeah, Jaden Knott's really damn good. I believe he was preseason first team All ACC at both running back and all purpose player.
He was.
So he's really damn good. And Florida State's going to have their hands full with him and shouldn't have their hands full with anybody else on this team. And Florida State should win by a few touchdowns.
Then up next, Florida State plays SMU, another new ACC foe that is just it is what it is. But you know what? It's in Dallas, though. It's in Dallas.
First true road game.
Yep. First true one. Domestic, you could say. But actually, this one, to me, though, feels really interesting. It's one that we were talking about this whole entire offseason. Like, hey, SMU, could this be a trap game? I mean, easy. It looks like.
I'll be honest. It's not just a trap. I am really nervous about this game. It is SMU's first ACC game, and we know how excited they were to join the ACC for going all of their TV money. They made a lot of changes and brought in a lot of talent to this SMU team. It's Dallas in September, which means it's going to be hotter than Hades, and it's their last game of a 4-game homestand. They are going to be rowdy. It's going to be an interesting environment. There will be a bunch of FSU fans there as well, but to get to the number I wanted to get to for my Florida State record, I had to pick another loss somewhere. I'm taking this one. I just have a bad feeling about this game. I really do.
It's first season. SMU comes in and takes out the ACC champion from 2023.
Woo.
Well, let's see. I'm just looking at their schedule real quick. They face TCU the week before, BYU the week prior to that. And
they're all in Dallas. All those games are in Dallas.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I've already got. I'm going to stick with the gut. I got Florida State winning this one, though. I do. I'm relying so much on this defense, ladies and gentlemen. If we're starting to get a theme here, I'm relying a lot on what Florida State's going to be doing defensively. And honestly, too, my biggest concern was staying healthy on the inside with Darrell Jackson, Joshua Farmer. But we're getting closer and closer deeper in the season, man. And Daniel Lyons, please stay healthy, too. And please make strides. I'm praying.
It's one you got to keep an eye on, though. I mean, SMU veteran quarterback in Preston Stone, pretty good head coach who spent a couple years at Miami, and I mean is a little familiar with how Florida State operates. I wonder if that could have some type of impact going into this game. But I will say the one thing that has me stopping from picking SMU to upset Florida State is, I mean, man, they got smacked around by Boston College in that bowl game last year. I think it was 35-7. I mean, got flat out dominated. I know that they've made some improvements this offseason, added some guys through the transfer portal, but I'm just not sure if they'll have enough overall depth to be able to take down a team like Florida State in year one in a Power 4 conference. So I'm going to go FSU in this one, but a little worried first true road game. And like Austin was saying, a team that's very fired up to be in the ACC and take their shot at teams like FSU. We'll see what happens when we get to it at that point in the season.
You also have to keep in mind for secret agent Quashon Sapp went to SMU this offseason. So
he did end up there, didn't he?
He did. Sapp. After his second transfer in one offseason, but he's over there.
Revenge game for him. Jeremiah Byers versus Quashon Sapp. Line it up. Line that shit up. Let's go.
They play different. Yeah. They play offensive line.
No. Never mind. I'm thinking about Quashon Fuller. I'm thinking about Quashon Fuller.
No,
I haven't thought about that name.
I think his career might be done.
No, Quashon showed up on my Instagram the other day.
He's still at Maryland. He might have 1 year left.
Is he? There's no way.
I gotta look this up now. Damn, he's on the 2024 roster.
God.
Damn. Yeah.
I thought he was at
Shock
FSU when
Rashawn
I was
Fuller.
at FSU. Jeez.
Mhm. Damn. First,
He was
Why-
he was there in 2019. So
okay, never mind. It's not gonna be the Quashawn Fuller revenge game, but shout out Quashawn Sapp though. Good guy, young man, big boy. Here we go. Speaking of big, we got a big game here, gentlemen. Florida State doesn't get a bye in this one. You're getting thrown into it. Florida State's gonna be facing Clemson, Dabo. Florida State went to Death Valley and came away with a win there. We were all there for that one. In overtime, shout out to Keon Coleman and the grab there, and also defensive side of the ball too for making the plays that they did. But Florida State comes away with a win there. Now Dabo Swinney wants his revenge, and then you've got the DJU storyline written all over it. But this one's on October 5th. What a stretch of games there for Florida State. If we're thinking this SMU game is going to be a close one, SMU, and then you go over and you face, or then you're back at home and you face Dabo. And the biggest thing is going to be all about DJ and facing his former team. This one to me is this one just gut telling me. I was at the gym earlier today and I was just thinking, man, I'm gonna have to figure out these record predictions. I'm like, what game is really gonna be the one that stands out the most outside of another one that I've got here? I don't think Florida State's going to go undefeated in this regular season. I think it's going to start off with this Clemson game at home. Cade Klubnik, I think it's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks here, and we don't have answers yet of what DJ is going to be showing us until we see it this next weekend against Georgia Tech. I just lean Clemson in this one right now as we speak, and Dabo and their team showed strides. And the good thing about it is Will Shipley's not there anymore, but there's always going to be talent and what Clemson brings. And I don't know. I just think it's going to be a very, very close one, but Clemson comes out on top here. And that's the first loss that I have for the Seminoles to start the season.
yeah, Will Shipley is gone, but Phil Mofta really gave FSU a handful last year. But
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that big run that he had in that game because the next play was Kalen DeLoach forcing that fumble and taking it back the other way. But Clemson, he had a big run, and they were close. I mean, in a position to go up 2 scores there. And I mean, who knows what happens if that scenario plays out. But yeah, I agree with you, Logan. Florida State, I don't expect them to go undefeated in 2024. And this Clemson game, this has a chance to be the first blemish on the record for the Seminoles. Haven't defeated Clemson in Tallahassee since 2014. It's been a while. They were able to snap that overall losing streak to the Tigers last year, but we'll see if they're able to take care of things in Tallahassee this season. But yeah, Cade Klubnik, I'm expecting him to show some improvements. I think Clemson should probably be better on offense this season going into the second year with the Garrett Riley there as offensive coordinator. You got to think there'll be some more cohesion. They'll be on the same page. So I think Clemson wins this one in a close one.
I thought I was going to be the only one to mention the 2014 game that they hadn't won at home since the Eddie Goldman game. That's what I classify that as. I know everyone calls that the James suspension game, but that was the Eddie Goldman game.
Well, hang on. Give Logan 3 minutes. He's doing his research.
Eddie Goldman. Hold on.
I'm just going to keep talking.
Who else was in on that play too? Because there was a Terrence. I thought
you can also call it the Carlos game where he had that touchdown in overtime.
Casher too. Casher.
Yeah, I don't like giving credit to Casher. No offense, Casher, if you're listening.
Dang. Jeez.
But I feel like this game's partially the reason I don't feel good about the SMU game is DJ and this team's going to be so fired up for the Clemson game that they might overlook SMU a little bit. I actually feel really confident that Florida State's going to win this game. I don't know why. I have no reason to. I have that feeling, even though Clemson's going to come out with a much better skill group. Last year they were really young at wide receiver, but some guys like Tyler Brown showed out for them. Another year of development, another year in that system with, like you mentioned, Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik. They should be better, but for some reason, I'm not worried about this game at all. I think Florida State wins by a couple touchdowns.
Wow. This is going to be crazy. All right. Interesting. And I'm interested to see if this changes whenever we go into the season.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it will.
Your score predictions and stuff. But that's interesting here. So everybody's gut's kind of going. They're leaning their gut right now for that game. Sounds good to me. Real quick here, Florida State Duke, October 18th. Florida State gets a bye after the Clemson game. This one's going to be up there in Durham. VZ, you're going to be up there?
Yep, I'll be there.
Sweet deal. Riley Leonard's we're going to see Riley Leonard later on in the season when Florida State faces Notre Dame on the road. But here, Florida State win. Let's do this quickly.
Yeah, I feel like my football curse is over now. That streak has been broken. I've seen a few wins in person now, so I can feel confident in saying Florida State will win this game, especially because they're going against Manny Diaz. I feel so good anytime Florida State plays one of his teams. New quarterback over there in Durham and Malik Murphy coming over from Texas. Not concerned.
Man, the last game you attended, worst loss in Florida State history. I'm just putting that out there.
Do any of us count that though? And actually, you know what, Tommy? I hope you're listening. I'm blaming the loss on Tommy.
Damn. Poor Tommy just gets hit out of nowhere. He's just hanging out. He's probably actually watching the show right now.
I know.
Supporting us and everything.
Catching a stray.
Damn. Just caught a stray out of nowhere. Damn it, Tommy. I would never do that to you, Tommy.
I agree with you guys, though. All the changes at Duke this offseason, new head coach, new quarterback. I think Florida State goes in there and gets the win. But, man, sometimes those Friday night games, they can be a little scary.
It's a Friday night between two rivalries because you have Clemson the week before and you have Miami the game after.
Starting to get towards Halloween a little bit.
Could get a little hairy, but I'm not concerned right now.
You like it, Harry Beasy. You like it, Harry. Let's move on to Florida State.
What?
Florida State, Miami here. Florida State, Miami. Let's jump in there quickly. But no, October 26th. I think I'll be there for that one. Dealer, you're going to try to make that drive down there? Down south?
If we have any money left.
Yeah, a good point. But yeah, Florida State's going to be facing Mario Cristobal. You know, the biggest thing to me, and someone put in the chat earlier, like Mike Norvell, he's going to make everything work to where he's not losing to Miami. And, you know, the last time they were there, they absolutely dominated them. I am sort of expecting to say, I think Miami's going to put definitely a better product out on the field this upcoming season. They're going to look better. But I don't have Florida State losing to Miami under Mike Norvell, just where Mike Norvell is at and where the program is at. He's built it to where now you are expected to beat your rivals at this point right now. A couple of years ago, I definitely, have some of these games a lot closer and sometimes lead sometimes towards some of these rivals. But now it's gotten to the point where Florida State should be beating some of these guys. And I think Florida State beats Mario Cristobal in Miami.
Yeah, I'm just not sold on Miami's army of mercenaries. I mean, they've added a ton of talent through the transfer portal, bought themselves a couple of really good high school recruits as well. But I don't know, just something about that culture over there the last couple of years just hasn't sat right with me. And then on the flip side, it seems like Florida State, they're doing everything right when it comes to how they operate in that transfer portal and, NIL and all that type of stuff, and building a strong culture as well as a really talented roster in Tallahassee. So this is a game where, it's a rivalry. It could be close. It was close last year, closer than it should have been. I think Florida State, they're a couple plays away from really breaking that game open and it not being a 7-point game to finish. I agree with you, Logan. I think Florida State, they're going to end up dominating this one. I think Mike Norvell, he just coaches well against Mario Cristobal, and he's kind of able to figure out some of those weaknesses and really play it to FSU's advantage.
As much talent as they have, Mario Cristobal is still their head coach. And until that changes, I'm never going to be worried about Miami. It just is what it is. He had some success at Oregon, and he had Justin Herbert, and he still couldn't get the most out of him. So I'm just not that concerned about Miami. I don't care how much talent they end up accumulating. I'm just not that worried about them.
No, me neither. Mario Cristobal just does not prove on the field a good product on Saturdays, and will slip up against some. We were just talking about against Georgia Tech last year. They will just slip up on some games out of nowhere and just kind of go week to week too, and just show up bad performances.
Can I go further in this prediction real quick?
Yeah.
Week 1, they play Florida in the Swamp. And as much as we've made fun about Florida's back half of that schedule, I think they're going to come out ready to play against Miami and might even beat them. If Miami loses week 1 to Florida and then again to Florida State here, things are going to get a little sketchy in that athletic department.
Oh yeah, 100%. Can't wait for that game because I think every FSU fan is obviously going to be watching it. But just imagine if Florida upsets Miami there, and just all hell just breaks loose, and it's Florida State just does its own thing, but it just everything falls apart because I just don't think Florida they can win that game, but they have such
That's what I'm saying. Whether they
but they'd be hilarious though.
Yeah, whether Florida wins or loses to Miami,
They're gonna have an
Napier's not
awful
making
team.
out of the season. Yeah, there's just no way.
So that's what I'm leaning. Oh, hey, why not? Just do it, Napier. Put everything you got. Put Lagway in there if you really need to. Just go all out on it, and then just lose all the rest of the home.
Cam Ward, he could end up being a turnover machine. Whenever he was being recruited by Florida State back in December, and they're kind of trying to make those decisions between Ward and DJ. I remember we brought it up on the podcast at one point, just kind of comparing those turnover numbers, and it was something like 37 career fumbles to DJ's 3 or 4, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was something significant like that, and I wonder how that's gonna play into this season, because Florida State they practice a lot of those turnover drills where they're swatting where the ball would be in the quarterback's arm if he's back there in the pocket. You might need to watch out for a couple of those.
You also have to account for 16 interceptions the last 2 years out of Cam Ward. If he had come to Tallahassee, I would have felt really good about him. I think he's a very talented quarterback. But like I said, I just don't trust Cristobal. And it was part of the reason. Yeah, it was part of the reason I didn't vote Cam Ward for preseason player of the year, even though he won it by a pretty decent margin. I wasn't one of the ones that voted for him. I don't trust him with that staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm surprised a lot of other voters didn't think the same way as you because of Mario Cristobal and development there at the quarterback room. Nothing has shown us that, oh my goodness gracious, everybody should be worried. Cam Ward is now going to get coached by Mario Cristobal and that coaching staff. Oh my God, watch out. That's just not the case, and definitely not in my brain. So, AZ,
AZ strapping Strepo.
It's happening. Got a pick. Okay. Strapped up Fintrell. I mean, I'm high on Fintrell going this season after what I've been hearing. So both of them, you got a tandem of really two solid cornerbacks right now for Florida State. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the next week, which is going to be the Tar Heels. They make it back to Doak Campbell Stadium after Florida State back in 2020. Mike Norvell got that win. They were ranked number 8, was it? Or is it 5? 5 or 8?
I don't remember. I think it was 5.
I think it was,
they were ranked.
Yeah, I think they were 5 or 8. It was high.
Definitely a top 10 team. And then Florida State went to their house the next year and beat them once again.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State's first win of the 2021 season.
Yeah, Tar Heels have a lot of.
Austin's like, oh wow, I don't even.
I was a game ahead. Sorry, I was like, wait a second. Yeah.
We're also warming up. August 14, we're getting ready to preview a game next week. It's just crazy, but we're readjusting. We're going to be fully dialed next week. It's going to be game by game. We're rolling, baby. But anyways, Florida State versus North Carolina here. I've got the Seminoles. I'm just going to say right there. I'm getting prepared for the next week's game. I've got Florida State. It's all about the gut, baby. The gut last year, I went undefeated. I'm pretty sure I only had like 2 games a year beforehand that I was off on. No, I think it was actually 1, and y'all screwed me. So it wasn't me. It was y'all's fault. And I leaned y'all's way, and I didn't go with my gut. So I'm going to stick with my gut here. But I got Florida State winning this one, and I would expect this is going to be a good old 3:30 clash, Tar Heels, Seminoles.
Yeah.
I hope not, because one of my friends is getting married that day, and that would really mess up the plans for me to make it over there.
Don't go.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm gonna go Florida State in this one. I just don't see Mike Norvell losing to Mac Brown.
Yeah, you said Jaden Ott was the best running back in the conference. To me, it's Omarion Hampton at UNC. Last year, 1,500 yards on the ground, 15 touchdowns, had another 200 yards receiving. To me, he's very easily the best running back in this conference, and that's including guys like Phil Maffa, who we were talking about earlier, who I'm high on as well. But they went 8-5 last year with Drake May and Omarion Hampton. They don't have Drake May anymore. Florida State's not losing this game.
Nope. I wonder how Drake May's doing over there with the Patriots.
Apparently, Joe Milton's outplaying him.
Yeah, and that's what, you got to get your clicks that way, so I want to blame him for getting that out there. But I'm sure he's more of the exciting one that you would like to have. He's got all this attributes with his arm, but
it looks like Brissett's going to open the season as a starter. It looks like.
Yeah, but that was expected.
Yeah, sort of expected there, but
If my top 5 rookies getting beat out by Jacoby Brissett,
Wow.
I'm not
I mean,
feeling very
Dude,
good.
these coaches love Jacoby.
I don't have a problem with Jacoby. He's a solid veteran, but when I'm talking about my top 5 rookie quarterback that is expected to be my franchise future, he should beat out Jacoby Brissett.
I mean, it was going to be the same thing with the Vikings before McCarthy went down. Darnold was going to be the starter no matter what, but now they just don't have the choice.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if y'all would have drafted a different quarterback.
RIP.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, and that just didn't work out. So let's not do this again like we did
Yeah.
a few months
All right.
ago.
Yeah, RIP VZ.
It's been a rough few weeks for the Vikings.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy out for the season. Broke earlier today. So tough scenes. Good thing I got a healthy 2 quarterbacks, one that's won a Super Bowl before on my team. So here we are.
Not with your team though.
Yeah, not with my team. Better organization. I'm thinking 2 rings. Here we go. Notre Dame, Florida State. On the road here, South Bend. It's been a tough one up there for the Seminoles. Let's just be honest. Sometimes they look like they want to win it. Sometimes it looks like they hate that cold. This is going to be at November 9th. This is going to be a night game prime time. It's going to be cold. It's going to be sucky. Weather is awful. Always looks miserable when I see fans going up there. But you got to go up there and play the game. And I think this is going to be the game of the year for Florida State. Just so happens to be there at the last little bit of the regular season. My gut all week has said Notre Dame, and today earlier at the gym, I thought Notre Dame again. So I am going to stick with the gut, and I got Florida State losing to Notre Dame, and and we still got Charleston Southern and Florida to go through here, so might not be done yet. But no, I've got FSU losing, and I at this point, it's all going to come down to health, and that's where I'm wondering where some of these kind of position groups that we were talking about, some of the like depth pieces we're talking about, tight end, we're talking about too, with how healthy that offensive line is and protecting DJ. Where is that at? Because we heard from Atkins, there's going to be some shuffling around with the offensive line, which I'm not a major fan of. That running game has to be going. It has to be going, or Florida State's not going to win the game. They're just not going to win the game if they cannot get that running game going, and that's what it relies down to me on. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a health thing. And, some guys are going to be dinged up, and this is not going to be a full 100% squad that they're putting out there on Saturday. I hope not, knock on wood, but that's just the way of football. And things happen like that. But just for right now, I've got Florida State losing this. So right now, 2 losses before going into the last 2 regular season games.
Yeah, it's one of those, very interesting. It's a game that's hard to predict because on one hand, like you said, Florida State, they've struggled recently going up to Notre Dame, and at that point of the year, early November in Indiana, you don't really know what the weather is looking like. I'm imagining but I imagine it's not going to be too crazy just yet, but I mean, potential maybe for snow or just some tough conditions.
Early bold predictions weather-wise, baby. I like it.
But then on the other hand, Marcus Freeman, in my opinion, they've kind of struggled to win big games early in his tenure at Notre Dame, and they are bringing in a new quarterback. You talked about him earlier, Logan, Riley Leonard. We'll see how that goes for the Fighting Irish, and they have put together a pretty solid roster over the years. I mean, gave Ohio State a heck of a battle last season. So I am going to go right now with Notre Dame, but we'll see how Florida State is playing. And, if they do hit the level that I think is possible throughout the year, I could maybe flip this back to a win whenever we get there. But L for now.
I'm just curious, do you guys know the last time Florida State won in South Bend, just off the top of your head?
I would say it's got to be like early 90s.
2003.
2005. Oh, my gosh. I was just going off of what you were saying.
Yeah, no. 2003, again, early November 1st, in South Bend. Florida State went up there and killed them 37-0. That is not going to happen in this game. Notre Dame should win this one.
Jeez, what a way to take it.
Bury the lead.
Just friggin' toy with them and tease them, yank it from them like that. Messed up.
Yeah, Notre Dame went 5-7 that year. I don't think they're that bad this year. They should be a pretty good team, and it's going to be cold. I'm just expecting that. South Bend's right on the lake. It's going to be cold.
Going to be cold. And then here, let's go off these last two games.
Trap game coming up.
Charleston Southern, baby. Charleston Southern's November 23rd. I'm thinking a good old nooner. I love a good nooner here in November 23rd.
And a good old
Weather's
turquoise
nice.
jersey game, if you ask me.
Ooh, you like a little turquoise here, matching with the Charleston Southern. What are those? Pirates? What are those? What is that logo down there?
I think they're the Colonels, maybe?
Nuh-uh.
Hold on.
I thought they're like the Mocs or something like that.
No, that's Tennessee Chattanooga.
Okay.
Oh, they're the Buccaneers.
Oh, they're playing the Bucks. They've got the
Yeah.
Bucks. Todd Bowles. That defense should be firing off. Devin White's gone. Baker Mayfield. It's going to be a tough task for the defense for Florida State. But no, for real, Florida State wins this one by 4 touchdowns. Luke Kromenhoek gets in this game, and he throws a
Only
touchdown.
4? If it's only 4, I'm going to be concerned.
5.
Yeah,
It's got to be 6 or 7 for me to feel kind of good about this.
you feel good. Well, I'm saying I think we're going to see second, third team in there pretty early on, and
We saw the second team early against Southern Miss. Like, it doesn't matter.
All right, here you go. Here, 5 touchdowns. There you go. 5 touchdowns. Luke Kromenhoek throws a damn touchdown. That's what I want. I want the chat to be excited for the true freshman that everybody's excited for. Luke Kromenhoek throws a touchdown, and it is going to go to Elijah Moore on a 70-yard deep post route. Bang.
Wow.
There it is. Everybody enjoy it. Have fun.
Jesus.
Yeah. I'm looking ahead, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, even last year when Florida State got out to that 13-0 deficit against North Alabama, they still ended up winning 58-13, 45-point margin of victory. So I'm thinking Florida State, this is one of those games where they're probably going to blow the opposing team out of the water. But you're also at that point late in the year, one game before you play Florida, you're probably going to have some guys on snap counts or, probably resting after that first quarter. I think Florida State handles business here, but man, watch out for those Buccaneers if Baker Mayfield does take the wrong flight.
See, we thought about that again, about the North Alabama game last year, where we thought they were going to get in and get out in the first couple quarters, and that just didn't happen. They had a pony up. I think that game woke something up in them for what this game will be. Florida State, I want Florida State to win by 8 touchdowns, because if they're wearing turquoise, I don't want to leave any doubt in the keep this Chief fans' heads, minds that the jerseys are cursed. Win by 8 or 9 touchdowns, so then go, oh, this works.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be something though?
No.
What, Florida State lost with the turquoise jerseys?
The basketball team has decent luck in the turquoise. I don't know the exact record off the top of my head, but they've done well. The football team follows suit.
All right. And I think, let's just wear these for the, the baby teams that are coming here. Hope that clip doesn't come back to bite my ass. So I got really nervous that North Alabama game. I'll be honest with you. Oh, goodness gracious. Wow. Here we go. Last game of the season, regular season. We're not going in the postseason, all that kind of stuff. We'll predict that stuff if we get there. But Florida State, Florida. We were just talking about Billy Napier. This is I don't
say who's going to be the coach?
I don't think he'll be I don't think he'll be down there for this game. I don't think Billy Napier will be there, but this is on November 30th. You got to love it. Thanksgiving weekend, all that kind of jazz. But this one's going to be at home. Thoughts on this one? I mean, I've got Florida State winning this, but we've seen this before where you've had an interim head coach come in and.
I was just about to say, hopefully we don't get a Ron Zook situation here.
Jeez, I know. Brings back nightmares from the past, but you don't have Anthony Richardson too as well driving down the field. I remember being down there when Florida was at Doak, and they was like, "Oh my goodness gracious, hold on, what is happening?" Like, it's a rivalry game. That's the one thing that you can't ever forget. Like, this is a rivalry game. I thought Florida State was going to win by a good margin too in that season. It didn't happen, so still got to keep that in mind, but. Just going over the absolute massacre of a schedule that they're going to be going through in that gauntlet,
It's
and you know what? They might just want to just predicate and just lay it all down on the last game of the season facing FSU, because that's all that's really there to care for at the end of the day. But I do have FSU winning this.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Who knows if Billy Napier is still going to be there in Gainesville at this point of the season? You think back to a couple years ago, Florida State fighting for bowl eligibility in 2021. Last game of the season, Dan Mullen had been fired. UF had an interim head coach. Seemed like FSU was primed to go into Gainesville and get that 6th win in Mike Norvell's second year. And obviously the Gators came out and gave them a heck of a game. Ended up ending Florida State season that afternoon. So that factor always in the back of my head a little bit. But this Florida team, as we have kind of said, they're going to be going through a gauntlet, man. I mean, this schedule is absolute insanity. I don't know if I've ever seen a harder schedule than this.
It's unbelievable.
Eight preseason opponents, or 8 opponents that are in the preseason AP top 25, and that stretch to conclude the season, just freaking brutal. I mean, you're already talking
5 of the last 6 are in the top, what is it, 10 or something like that, or something. It's insane.
It's something crazy like that, and that's at the point of the season already where you've played a half a season of football. Your guys are starting to get beat up, and then you throw them something like that. I don't even know if Florida's going to have enough players to play in the 12th game. But
that's how I feel. That they're gonna start with such like a quick energy in this game, but they're just gonna be so depleted and so banged up from the weeks prior that I don't know that they'll have enough in the tank.
Yeah, so I do have Florida State winning this one and clinching a 10+ win season for the 3rd time in 3 years.
Yep, I agree. Florida State should win. Hopefully, I don't have to go on another Florida rant that I did last year. And 10-win season would put them at 7-1 in the ACC, which should be good enough for the ACC championship.
Yep.
I think that'd be successful for me.
Yeah, I think so too. And I feel good about that record prediction right now. I really do. And I don't know. I have so much that I want to see answered. Where last year at this time, we felt really secure on a lot of things, and we all predicted Florida State to beat LSU. And now, to me, of us talking about Florida State winning by a field goal against Georgia Tech, what a whole kind of 180 that kind of vibe that we're feeling before going into the first game of the season. So definitely, we've got some question marks in our heads that we're gonna have to get answered. But we start game week next week. We'll be here on the show on Wednesday night previewing Florida State versus Georgia Tech. After the game too, as well, we'll have an instant reaction for you guys too. We should have that pretty quickly for you guys. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube. Going to be a lot of YouTube this season, as you've seen all throughout fall camp and spring. Make sure you're subscribed there. If you're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, hit that like button. We will definitely appreciate it. If you're watching on just the VOD, watching this later, drop down your record predictions as well. We want to hear from you guys too. But got a fun season ahead nonetheless. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of fun players to watch. There's some special playmakers. And I think, too, we're seeing a handful of guys that maybe we weren't expecting to see a whole ton of. We're about to see this upcoming season. I think that's going to make it really exciting to cover. So our team has done a phenomenal job this spring and fall camp. Shout out to all of our writers and everything, getting us prepped up for this season. And shout out to the team with D. Lou and Tommy and the rest of the guys over there at NoleGameday.com. They've killed it, and I can't be more excited for this season and covering it with you guys here on Here to Spear. Another season ahead, gentlemen. Let's see if we're right again. 10-2. Head back up to Charlotte. Have a good time. See where this team can go. Maybe finally get that college football playoff invite. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Paul Feinbaum definitely doesn't think it, so we're not giving him any more entertainment. I got my Twitter engagement. I got my retweets. I got my clout. I'm out, baby. That's all we needed. Everybody, enjoy the rest of y'all's week. Safe travels up there next week if you're heading over to Dublin, Ireland. And we will talk to you guys Wednesday at 7 p.m.